This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Let's talk about Justin Simmons. I feel like if you are a football freak enough to be scrounging around for NFL news in June and July, Justin Simmons has come up a lot. No matter what team you root for, it seems like everybody's got a Justin Simmons rumor, right? Everybody's linked to Justin Simmons. If you search Justin Simmons landing spot, you're going to see, like, I'm not even joking. Like, I want to show the screenshot, but if you search that, you're going to see like 5 or 6 different teams labeled as betting favorites to get Justin Simmons. Like, it's one of those things in the offseason that you just can't take too seriously. And in this video, I want to talk about why it is that every team seems to be linked to Justin Simmons. I also want to hit on why Justin Simmons is available in the first place and where he's actually most likely to land. But before I do that, make sure y'all hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ding that notification bell. We're trying to get to 50K, so let's get on that road. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't. But let's talk about Justin Simmons, man. Justin Simmons is linked to every team for what I feel like is a very simple, if not cynical, reason. Justin Simmons is a big name. In 2019, he was one of the best defensive players in all of the NFL. And right now we're in June and July. And while there's always stuff to talk about when it comes to the NFL and football, if you're willing to dig deep enough, if you're just looking for surface level news during this era, it's not much out there, right? Nobody's practicing. Everybody's kind of chilling. Honestly, you kind of don't want to hear news, right? Because the only real news that could pop up in June and July are like bad news. But when there's a big name free agent out there, that's something that you can always have in your back pocket if you want to put some news out there, right? If things are slow, you want to stir things up, you'll want to put some news out there. Now, again, me personally, I prefer to be creative and look deeper at the past season and the roster and all of these things. But that's not what everybody wants to watch. And a lot of people want news even when there's no news. And, you know, when there's a big name free agent, it's real easy to say, hey, maybe my team that I talk about, maybe they should sign that guy, or maybe they're gonna sign that guy because it's a free agent. You can say whatever you want about a free agent. He's not linked to any team heavily. It's not indicated that he's going to sign anywhere. He's just there. And he's a big name, and people get excited because they hear Justin Simmons and they think of 2019 Justin Simmons and they go, oh, that's going to be a big difference maker for us. Right. It's why, like, Ezekiel Elliott, this happened with him last year, where people were like arguing about whether the Browns should bring in Ezekiel Elliott, or, you know, there's Julio Jones. There's always a older veteran player who still has a lot of name recognition and maybe has not been exposed for being cooked to the point to where everybody knows that player is cooked. Like, this happened with Cam for a while. There's always going to be a group of people that hear that name and go, man, I've always wanted that dude to be on the Browns. The Browns should get him. It's a pretty natural thing, right? Like, a lot of us want to draft Zeke. So it wasn't like we really thought Zeke was going to be a great running back. We were hoping that Zeke would be a great running back because we always wanted to see Zeke look like Zeke in a Browns uniform. This is the same thing that's going on with Justin Simmons. It's more wishful thinking for a lot of people and wish fulfillment than it is about football itself. And that's not to say that Justin Simmons is washed. Justin Simmons is not washed, in my opinion. I think he's still a good player. He's not the dude he was in 2019, but outside of 2019, that's never really what Justin Simmons was. Who Justin Simmons is as a free safety is somebody who is good, adequate in coverage most of the time, even though last year he was not good in coverage at all. But he's a playmaker in pass coverage. He's somebody who's going to take some risks to get some interceptions, to get some pass breakups. It's kind of like the Grant Delpit of pass coverage, where Grant Delpit will risk a lot and get a lot of run stops. But then you look at Grant Delpit's run PFF grade and you're like, man, that is abysmal. He must stink as a run defender. And it's not because Grant Delpit stinks as a run defender. It's because Grant Delpit takes a lot of risk as a run defender. Sometimes it works out. He gets a big play. Sometimes he lets a big play happen. That's the same thing with Justin Simmons. That's why it doesn't make sense for certain teams to be in the mix for him. When you think about that being who Justin Simmons has always been, and then you look at the most recent version of Justin Simmons, and it's a player who has not been remotely good in coverage as he has like the last 2 years, which is a concern, especially when your whole thing is playmaking in pass defense and you're getting to 32 and a lot of your game hinges on some level of explosion. You see where we're getting to. Again, I don't think he's washed. I think he's still got a year or two in him where he could play pretty good level football, but he's not a superstar anymore. But he has the name of a superstar, which is going to drive a lot of interest. Now let's get into what I've kind of hit on, which is the question of why Justin Simmons is available in the first place, despite being a Pro Bowler in 2023. Right, he had 4 or 5 interceptions. If you look at the numbers on Justin Simmons, the interception numbers, the pass breakup numbers, again, they're going to look good. But the issue with Justin Simmons isn't his ability to make plays. He's a playmaker. It's the play-to-play stuff with him, right? When you look at his film, there's a lot of big plays he gives up. The coverage isn't great. He's not the same dude he was in 2019, and that's because he's just not making the same level of plays that he was in 2019. So the volume of plays being made is just not making up for the volume of mistakes in coverage that Justin Simmons makes. He's a good run defender. He's a good playmaker in pass coverage. And also you have to consider the reason he got cut. The Broncos are rebuilding. His contract, it was expensive for a safety, and the Broncos are not at the point where they're going to pay a safety a ton of money, especially at 32. His age and his contract just don't match up with the Broncos timeline. I mean, they just drafted a quarterback, Bo Nix, in the top 15. So that tells you where the Broncos are as far as winning. Now they're paying Russell Wilson $83 million to stay away, and they're not winning now anymore. His level of play, as we touched on, has not been the same as it was in 2019. That's just a fact. He's not the all-pro that you remember. He's a good player, definitely a starter for a lot of teams, but not the all-pro level player that he once was, right? If we just look at pass breakups, he had 11 plus in 2019, and in 2023 he had 5. He's not that level of playmaker anymore, which is fine. Also, he has this Earl Thomas issue, or at least what I like to call an Earl Thomas issue, where Earl Thomas, for those of y'all who maybe you just missed it, right? Because right now we got kids who, grew up, maybe they were born in 2004, 2005, which sounds crazy, but that's the thing. We got 2,000 babies in the audience now. And if you weren't there really watching in 2010 to 2016, it's real easy to forget just how dominant Earl Thomas was when Earl Thomas was doing his thing. And the reason it's easy to forget just how dominant Earl Thomas was when he was doing his thing is because Earl Thomas went from that dude to out the league like that like quicker than a fart in church. I don't know why I said that, dog. But nonetheless, Earl Thomas was out of here super quick, right? Like he was that dude, and then he went to Baltimore. Derrick Henry threw him out the league, and we ain't never see Earl Thomas again. Part of that is because of Earl Thomas's off the field stuff, but honestly, a lot of that stuff was brewing because of the way that Earl Thomas plays football, which is Earl Thomas is a playmaker. In order to be a playmaker, it requires a lot of freedom around the football. And coaches are willing to let that happen when you in your prime. Coaches are willing to let you do that when you're still that dude. But if you start to have a little bit of a fall off, that ain't going to fly no more. You're not going to be able to do that. And you're not useful anymore because you can't be a role player. You always want to make a play. You always want to get out of alignment. And that's the thing with Justin Simmons. He's a great playmaker, but he's not that dude anymore. So who's going to let him try to be that dude, or is he going to have to be a role player? And is that a role that he can play in? Or is that even something that coaches want to bother with? Because the only teams that make sense to sign him are win-now teams. But does a win-now team want to deal with that? Now, I'll tell you one team that I have heard in this rumor mill for Justin Simmons is definitely not signing Justin Simmons. And I don't want to be a party pooper or a mood killer. It seems like I'm just trying to bring the vibe down. But Justin Simmons is not signing with the Cleveland Browns. I would be very surprised if that happened. I'll put it like that. The reason for this isn't because the Browns can't afford Justin Simmons. If they needed a safety, they could sign Justin Simmons. It would be fine. It's not that. The reason the Browns aren't going to go after Justin Simmons is simple. It doesn't make sense for the Browns to go after Justin Simmons. It doesn't make sense from the Browns' perspective, and it really doesn't make sense from Justin Simmons' perspective as well. Here's what I mean by that. When you look at Juan Thornhill, and I know there's a section of the fan base that is just down on Juan Thornhill, but that's also always going to be the case with any free safety. They could bring in Justin Simmons 8 games in, them same people going to hate Justin Simmons because strong safety, free safety, those are hard pitch positions to really understand what value they bring. But Juan Thornhill brings similar value to what Justin Simmons does at this point of his career, and he's younger, right? Juan Thornhill is 28, Justin Simmons is 31. When you look at their run defense ability, Juan Thornhill is comparable, if not better, than Justin Simmons. At that, we did a whole thing of film breakdown on Juan Thornhill earlier this month on this channel where I talked about his strengths as a run defender for this Cleveland Browns team. He is similar to that. So if you bring in Justin Simmons, you're getting somebody whose weaknesses are similar to Juan Thornhill's and strengths are similar to Juan Thornhill's. And he's not necessarily a clear upgrade, and he's older. So it wouldn't make sense to replace Juan Thornhill with Justin Simmons. I think it would make some people feel much better because Justin Simmons is a more recognizable brand name than Juan Thornhill. But functionally, it'd be just like having Juan Thornhill. Now, you can make the argument that they could bring him in for depth. Again, that's when you start to get into the whole Justin Simmons side of it, because why would Justin Simmons sign to be a backup if he does not have to be a backup? And he's not at the position where he has to be a backup. So I don't see that happening. Also, like, the Browns have Ronnie Hickman. They have DeAnthony Bell. They really like what Ronnie Hickman was able to do. Yes, he got tore apart by C.J. Stroud in that playoff game, but I mean, he was a rookie. Right? Like, he put enough good stuff together that you would have some faith in him being able to improve in the offseason. So I think that they like Ronnie Hickman as the guy that they're developing behind Juan Thornhill. They're not going to risk Ronnie Hickman's roster spot or risk DeAnthony Bell's roster spot to bring in Justin Simmons. Also, when you look at the other safeties on the roster, right? They have Ronnie McLeod, they have Grant Delpit. It doesn't make sense to bring in Justin Simmons to play alongside Juan Thornhill, because if you want Justin Simmons to just focus on being a coverage safety, right? Because you want Juan to focus on the run defense. That doesn't make sense because then you take Grant Delpit out of coverage, and Grant Delpit is a better coverage corner play to play than what Justin Simmons is right now. You also have a similar kind of dynamic where you want to use Ronnie McLeod. Again, I don't think Justin Simmons is coming or signing with a team to be Ronnie McLeod. And even then, the Browns already have Ronnie McLeod. There's just no room for another safety on this team. It just does not make much sense for the Browns to spend money on a position that they've already spent money on just to get older and potentially lateral upgrade, if not worse, just so we have a bigger name on the roster for people to feel better about. It just does not make sense. And if you look at the moves Andrew Berry has made throughout his career, where does that sound like an Andrew Berry move to you? Like, let me get older and like replace somebody already paid? That's just not how Andrew Berry kind of works here. So I don't think that's going to be a team that goes at him. Maybe Baltimore might go at him, right? Baltimore is definitely a team that's not afraid of somebody in their 30s. I think Indy makes a ton of sense for him too. I see a lot of people going Miami. I think maybe Buffalo, because Buffalo has to replace a couple of safeties that they lost. I thought Cincinnati would make a ton of sense for him too. But then Cincinnati went out, got Von Bell, and went out, got Geno Stone. They have no use. So that's my 2 cents on all the Justin Simmons stuff going on. It's why I have not made a huge push to cover anything that you might have heard. I know I've gotten comments on like almost every video. Oh, talk about this Justin Simmons stuff. That's why. And honestly, my word to Browns fans, because it's one thing to want to be excited about the year and want new information, but I also don't want people to be put in a situation where they're going to be set up for failure. If you're only hearing about the Browns being interested in a player in June and July, it's probably cap. Like, that's just the truth. If a rumor only comes up during this period of the year, they probably lying. Like, it's probably just something somebody said on Twitter to get some engagement. And then somebody was like, I want some of that. So then they aggregated that in their article to get engagement. And then somebody was like, well, I want some of that. So I'm going to aggregate that into my video. Let's do this for like, let me just show you how this hamster wheel works. If some Twitter account, right, like one of them junk NFL news and rumors Twitter accounts says, hey, the Browns are amongst the top 5 competitors for Justin Simmons. Okay. You're going to hear that and go, okay, but this is from this junk Twitter account. Like, who cares? But let's say somebody who is a freelance writer for Bleacher Report or a freelance writer for CBS picks that up and puts it in their article and says, hey, this Twitter account says that the Browns are in the running for Justin Simmons. What then happens is that somebody picks that up and they either write an article, make a video, do a segment on the radio about how Bleacher Report or CBS is saying that the Browns are interested in Justin Simmons. What started in what is essentially a rumor from some dude's Twitter account now is being wrapped as a report from CBS. And then that's how they use that rumor to bring you in to make you think that that shit is real. But it's not, right? So whenever you hear stuff and whenever I hear stuff and I only hear it in June and July, have your antennas up. It ain't always cap, but it usually is cap, unless you're hearing it from actual reliable people who are willing to put their name and reputation on the line and have a reputation worth putting on the line, right? So that's my 2 cents on the whole thing. I don't think the Browns are a serious contender for Justin Simmons, and I don't think they ever were even thinking about it. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.